What the
Yeah, sorry about that. Nobody would have clicked on this video if it was called Avatar Fire and Ash Review. Hello everyone, Sudoop here. I just saw the latest Avatar movie. I really liked 2022's The Way of Water and have been quite a big fan since. Also, I'm gonna get into spoilers because it's impossible to talk about a movie without talking about what happens in said movie, so I'll give a fair warning when that'll start. What I find so fascinating about Avatar on a conceptual level is that after these 5 movies are done, Pandora is going to be the most fleshed out planet, technically moon, in all of science fiction, at least in terms of realistic CGI. This is the most we have been able to see a fictional alien planet in detail, and I think that's pretty incredible. Yeah, there's Arrakis or Tatooine, however, those have a severe lack in biodiversity, while Pandora feels comparable to Earth, in a way that planets in other science fiction blockbusters don't fully accomplish. Avatar is pretty simple. You know who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. But with how rich the world building is, a lot can be done with it. Okay, enough waffling about. I'm gonna talk about the movie now. What's important to understand about this movie is that it's very much a part 2 of Avatar: The Way of Water. Essentially, it's all the same movie. This one started with scenes that could have been in the last one. Maybe someday if I have 6.5 hours to kill, I'll watch them back to back. Now, maybe a little disappointing when in the movie called Fire and Ash, there's still more water than fire. This makes a lot of sense though when realizing that this was all just one giant script. It is also a little jarring how quickly the movie ends once Korch calls it quits, but considering the first act of Avatar 4 is already filmed, there are probably scenes in that which could have been placed interchangeably in either movie. It's a somewhat unconventional way of doing things, but I respect it. This being the second half does contribute to one of the main accusations against this movie, which is that it feels redundant or retreads old ground. Like I said, it is the least visually distinct of the trilogy, with mostly the same environments and some exact same locations being revisited. The home of the Ash people only gets one sequence to itself, which might be the best part of the movie, but more on that later. And there are only a few new creatures introduced. There are flying things and a lot of water creatures, but I honestly can't think of a single terrestrial animal that showed up in this movie. There probably was, and I just forgot, but they didn't have much of a presence. However, the sea otters that were cut from The Way of Water were included, so I can't complain too much. I think this saga is at the point where there can be an entry that focuses on the plot and making established pieces clash, rather than relying on the spectacle of constantly showing something new. It just means it would make more sense for the 4th movie to balance that out by having more downtime to explore new environments of Pandora. We're 60% of the way through this thing, so what's left needs to get as much out of this world as possible. I mean, unless they go to other planets, who knows? The 4th movie might also need to be a little less action-packed because there was a lot in Fire and Ash. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Dare I say it's a good thing, considering this is the finale of this first saga. This movie absolutely goes savage mode. Each entry has great action, but here it is taken up to 11. The Sully family can hardly catch a break here. Even when they get some time to relax, I'm expecting them to get jumped at any second. I remember a common complaint about The Way of Water is that the middle of the movie is too slow, but it taking its time to explore the nature is important, especially after how intense Fire and Ash is. Neytiri freeing Jake from the human city is where the action peaked for me. It was great seeing Neytiri be given a bigger role after being somewhat sidelined in the previous movie. A lot of the action here is instigated by someone getting captured, which is part of where the feelings of redundancy come from, but it makes sense considering they're getting hunted. At this point, this whole family has been so traumatized. Poor Took is like 7 and has had all this shit happen to her. Final battle also seems similar to the final battles of the previous movies. It works well enough though because it's a combination of those two. The first Avatar had sky ships, the second had water ships, and this one has both. Eywa coming through to the rescue this time also felt more earned because it's the culmination of Kiri's story. Eywa being shown as a real physical Na'vi, even if it's just a manifestation, is honestly so cool. The story has committed to making Eywa a real physical thing instead of a nebulous spiritual idea, and this is the best way to culminate that. As for good culminations, this is definitely the best movie for Quaritch as a character. He's never been able to accept himself as a Na'vi in the way Jake wants him to, but dies embracing the ways of the Ash clan. One of my favorite brief moments is when the general is scolding him for bringing the Ash Na'vi into the city, to which he tells her not to be a jackass to take the win. The general is basically the same as how Quaritch was in the first movie, and he doesn't even realize how he's changed. He's almost all the way to embracing a life life outside of humanity, with the only thing in the way being his obsession with killing Jake due to the implanted memories. The RDA also is made more interesting because there are fractures over whether to prioritize the militaristic or scientific side of things, with Spider being able to breathe Pandoran air now. That adds a whole new element, which I didn't even really think about, but yeah, humanity isn't going to be able to move en masse if everyone has to wear an oxygen mask to go outside. I'm not sure if anything the RDA does now will top their reintroduction in the way of water in terms of epicness, but this one builds new dimensions on the human faction. Quaritch jumping into the fire with acceptance of the Monquan's culture feels like it should be the end of his story. If he's the big bad for 2 more movies, then it could really feel redundant then. But hey, maybe there's a great plan of where he'll go next, but it would have to be executed really well, because this was the perfect send-off. Avatar has a new villain anyways, with Varong, who I've gone long enough without mentioning. Varong brings a whole new energy to the story and is a fan favorite because of Una Chaplin's fantastic performance. Oh, wow. As well as for other reasons. She is absolutely brutal though, which I think is important to show that not all the Na'vi are good and they can just be as brutal as the humans. It would have been nice if there could have been a bit more characterization of other members of the Monquan clan and their society, because as it is essentially just Varong and her goons. But considering how these movies flow together, I assume this won't be the last we see of them. Which also addresses the fact that Varong leaves pretty abruptly at the end of the movie, and I was really expecting to follow up with her before the credits roll. It is a bit unsatisfying, but if we see that at the start of 4, then I get it. That's just so long from now. Look, the biggest problem with a character being that they don't have enough screen time is a sign that they really stole the show when present. Which takes me to the scene where Varong and Quaritch, I guess, fall in love, sort of. This whole scene was so much fun. The twisting of "I see you" into something evil is genuinely genius. I was worried that phrase would start feeling overused by the 3rd movie because it has been used so sparingly but with such narrative effectiveness so far. So to see it used in this new unique way was really clever. It's seriously impressive how well those 3 words have contributed to the story and to building character. It's been used perfectly. The moments with Varong are almost too much fun because in comparison, some of the calmer moments with the Sully family are often either sad or someone trying to reassure someone else, which makes sense because of where we are and definitely has good character moments to it. Just in comparison, it's not as exciting. Anyways, I'm very interested to see where Varong goes next, and hopefully James Cameron knows that the fans want that because she's absolutely a highlight of this movie. She says very little during the final battle, which is surprising considering she's all front and center in all the promotional material, so there definitely needs to be more of her. Fire and Ash is looking like it'll go down as the Avatar movie where the villains steal the show the most. Now, I don't have too much to say about the hero characters because a lot of it needs a rewatch to fully figure everything out, but there's a lot that can be looked into further. Both Jake and Neytiri's parenting styles are challenged in a way that comes through when they decide they have to kill Spider, which breaks Neytiri out of her racism towards humans and Jake from his harsh do-what-you-gotta-do militaristic style of running his family. Both their respective dynamics with Quaritch and Varong are also a lot of fun, especially when Jake and Quaritch have to work together for Spider's sake. And the scenes where Neytiri and Varong are going head-to-head are awesome and intense. It's really made clear in this one how Spider is central to the story from here on out. I'm lukewarm about this. There's nothing bad about his character, and he is put in an interesting spot of being more torn between the human and Na'vi worlds than Jake is. However, he also isn't the best character in the cast either. But you know, this was filmed in like 2018, so by the time the 4th movie is fully filmed, he's gonna be a lot older anyways, so there is potential with him becoming basically the new Jake Sully equivalent. His setup is interesting enough. Loak also continues his arc from where he left off in The Way of Water, struggling with some real and relatable issues and coming into his own with his connection to the Tolkien. I did feel that there might be a slight issue with how Jake and Loak seemingly have to go through the same arc again, with Jake needing to accept him for who he is and relax on his tough leadership. This is something that absolutely needs a rewatch to get a better grasp on it for me, and it is realistic how it would be an issue between them that requires continuous effort. Also, if the Na'vi aren't actually speaking English and it's just translated for us, how does Quaritch know how to speak it perfectly? Alright, who cares? What I keep getting at is that this movie definitely needs multiple viewings to soak in terms of story and visuals, which is par for the course for a movie that's packed with action and character arcs for over 3 hours of runtime. I'm sure there's plenty of things I've already forgotten, honestly. But hey, if I want to already go back and see it again, then that's a really good sign, because honestly, just writing the script is making me appreciate the movie more and more. Before I wrap this up though, there's one more character moment I want to address. This movie does a little Star Wars reference by Loki having incest. Okay, not really, but Kiri and Spider kissing is a bit awkward because it does sort of feel like a sibling-esque dynamic was what they were going for, but also it kind of works because they're childhood friends, so I don't really know. But hold on, wasn't Sigourney Weaver 70 years old when this was filmed?
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Okay, I know they have doubles for this kind of thing. Just maybe it would be best for Kiri to be recast after the time jump if this is something they're going for. Anyways, this is awkward. So, I think I'll conclude things here. Just kidding, there's no way I wasn't going to talk about the best character, the absolute GOAT, Paya Khan. Not only is he still thugging it out in exile, but he has a team on his side now.
That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT!
The fact that Paya Khan, who's an absolute behemoth compared to anything on Earth, is actually small compared to the Whale Council and the Great Matriarch is awesome. All it takes is a peek at my most viewed videos to know that I always enjoy watching gargantuan organisms. The Tolkien were great in the Way of Water, and they still are here too. I just really like how they're a fully sentient society, and these non-humanoids are still fully treated as individual people. It's kind of beautiful in a way. Looking at the movie as a whole, when I first walked out of the theater, I was initially thinking that I liked The Way of Water a bit more, as it's the more balanced film. And I am actually of the rare opinion of liking the meaning of moist more than the first Avatar. But now I'm not sure, because there's a lot of moving parts in Fire and Ash and a lot to unpack. So I'll see where my ranking settles with time. Either way, if it's the least good or most good, it's all by very small margins, so I'm satisfied. Avatar's biggest strength is in how consistent in quality the movies have been, and if James is able to keep it up and finish strong, then Avatar could go down as one of the best sci-fi or just best movie series, honestly. The story is now at the point where Avatar is more than just a movie to go see because of the visual spectacle, and is best appreciated when also seeing the story, which has really come into its own. I'd be interested in doing more videos on Avatar. I feel like I say that about a lot of things and then don't. Well, there's a lot of time to kill until Avatar 4, so I'll probably at least make a video when that comes out. If it comes out, it will. He's not gonna quit his life's work on part 3 of his quintology.
It's 4 years, he's not gonna quit halfway through. Well, why are you boring me? I'm right.
Solid 8 out of 10. I'm now switching my most anticipated movie from Avatar 3 to Avatar 4. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time. Also, why is Steve Rogers back?